Good evening. Welcome to the February 11th, 2019 Troy City Council meeting. We are pleased this evening to have Mayor Pro Tem Baker lead us with the invocation. So please rise for that and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father in heaven, we give you thanks for the blessings of this day and for the blessings you've given each and every one of us here in Troy. We ask that you continue to bless us throughout the evening and give us wisdom to make the right decisions on behalf of the city. Help those who may be stuck in a position outside in the cold or at risk of any of the coming snow and ice. Keep them safe, keep them warm. Be with the first responders who will no doubt have their hands full helping those in need throughout the night and morning. Please be with city staff and the DPW crew who will work hard to clear our roads and keep us safe so that our children can go to school and that we can get to work and all do it in a safe fashion. Lord, please be with us always. Thank you for everything you've given us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Baker. The Troy City Council meeting is now called to order. The roll call, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Slater?
Here.
Councilmember Abraham?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Henderson?
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Here.
Councilmember Pennington?
Here. All present. First on the agenda is certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have 4 this evening. C1, on behalf of the City of Troy Employees Casual for Cause program for the months of November and December 2018. Community Affairs Director Cindy Stewart will present a check. Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. It's my pleasure once again. We wrap up 2018 with our Casual for a Cause funds, and we have $729 for the Boys and Girls Club of Troy. And Jeff Evans, the Executive Director, will accept the check.
Thanks for having me here tonight, Council and Mayor Slater. Thanks most of all to the employees for this generous donation. It'll go a long way with helping our members and our programs we run here locally. So again, we're a heartfelt thank you, and I appreciate being here tonight. I also, if I fail to mention this, I'll be in big trouble. So our biggest fundraiser of the year is coming up March 3rd, Taste of Troy. So hopefully we'll see some of you out there. Cindy has tickets, and tickets are available online on our website. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for what you do for our community, Jeff. And we'll see you at the Taste of Troy.
Okay, great.
All right. Thank you. C2 is Scenic Michigan Hero 2018 Award winner, and there'll be a presentation to the City of Troy and Troy resident Alec Peoples. So I would like to ask Erica Briggs, the Executive Director of Scenic Michigan, to come forward. Good evening.
Good evening. And I'm Erica Briggs, and I'm also joined by Peter Letzman, who is a board member of Scenic Michigan and a former employee of the City of Troy. So he had double reason to come tonight.
Yes, Mr. Letzman, you want to come forward, please?
So I'll say a few words, and then Peter will as well. So there are 3 essential ingredients to building a great city: engaged citizens, knowledgeable and empowered staff, and policymakers willing to be bold, visionary leaders. Last year, Troy demonstrated all 3 of these characteristics, and we're here to say thank you. In November of 2017, when 5 digital billboards were built in the city, residents and city leaders didn't just shrug and accept this visual pollution. Rather, the public demanded to know how these billboards could have been permitted, and in response to this outcry, City Council placed a moratorium on these new signs until the city's ordinance could be reviewed and updated. Last September, we were really pleased to see that unanimously adopted revisions to Chapter 85, signs that prohibits off-premises advertising in the city, and you approved the formation of a sign and lighting committee to continue the necessary work. We know that these changes were the result of a great deal of work, and so oftentimes these moments pass without much recognition, and we wanted to come and say thank you for your efforts. We are pleased to announce this evening that Troy resident Alec Peoples and the City of Troy are recipients of our 2018 Scenic Hero Award. Scenic Michigan developed the Scenic Hero Award to recognize individuals, businesses, and communities that make a significant and lasting contribution to preserving and protecting and enhancing the scenic character of Michigan's roads and communities. So Mr. Peoples is receiving a Scenic Hero Award for his community advocacy and the formation of Keep Troy Beautiful. Keep Troy Beautiful has brought together hundreds of Troy residents who take pride in Troy's appearance, oppose digital billboards, and built awareness around policies that can advance or detract from good community design. So it's advancing the master plan of the city. We really thank him for his time and commitment to making Troy a better place to live. And for the city of Troy, we also wanted to recognize you for your efforts. Despite the costly and time-consuming legal challenges from the outdoor advertising industry, the city has shown tremendous commitment to protecting Troy's appearance, reducing visual clutter, preventing blight, and advancing roadway safety. We thank City Council, legal staff, and planning staff I know who aren't here tonight for all of the work that's gone into this and the willingness to develop a sign ordinance that reflects community values and can hopefully serve as a strong model for other communities across the state. So thank you very much, and I'll let Peter say a few words before we actually pass out the goodies.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Peter Lutzman, and as the mayor mentioned, I was an employee of the city here probably several years ago, probably more years than you are old. I sat in that seat over there for about 20 years. I too am here to echo the praises of the city council, and Mr. Peoples in his effort to improve the aesthetic quality, the beauty of the city of Troy. As you know, Scenic Michigan has been on the forefront for many years, fighting that battle not only here in the city but throughout the state of Michigan. And I happen this year to be the vice president of Scenic Michigan. We're not only here to perhaps praise you for your current activities, but I'd like to go back that the city of Troy has been in the forefront in terms of sign regulations since its inception back in the 50s, 57, I think was when we were incorporated. And I want to acknowledge the fact that during the 80s and 90s, we drafted an ordinance, redrafted an ordinance, tweaked an ordinance, had aggressive enforcement, had consistent enforcement of that ordinance, and that did not go without challenge. I think every sign company in the United States came to City of Troy to sue us, and council was steadfast and did allow us to defend, and we were successful in defending the sign ordinances and the activities that we had undertaken in terms of maintaining the pristine nature of our city. I think about the cases, and I think of one case, Gannett. I don't know if Mr. Gannett is still selling signs here in the city or not, but Gannett, the newspaper, the media company, sued us. They were in the sign business at that time. And we prevailed in the circuit court. They took us up to the Court of Appeals, and we were successful in the Court of Appeals, but the juicy language in the opinion in the Court of Appeals was that aesthetics was a legitimate governmental interest. In other words, you could look at to more than just safety, you could look at to beauty, to cleanliness, to form, and of course, Gannett was not happy with that opinion. They took us up to the Court of Appeals, to the Supreme Court, the Michigan Supreme Court, and they did not overrule that Court of Appeals decision, and it still exists as it is today. So I need to thank a couple people during that time. Larry Kiesling, you may remember that name, the planning director, and John J. Martin III. Those are the two people who did the heavy lifting with that litigation during the 70s or during the 80s and 90s, and they should be recognized for the work that they did. One needs only to look at Big Beaver and all the thoroughfares here in the city, and you can see why corporations want to build their headquarters, why they want to place their headquarters here in the city of Troy. I hope you continue your diligence, your efforts in the future. I thank you for what you have done in the past. Scenic Michigan stands by to assist you in any way, shape, or form that we possibly can. And with that, Mayor, I will thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Letzman. Always good to see you.
Thank you. It's nice to be seen.
So Alec, I don't know if you'd like to come up. I don't know, you might have a few words to say as well. And we will present you with your clock for all of your time that you spent doing this.
Thank you. I don't have much to say. Just want to say thank you to Scenic Michigan and to you for your support in this process. Thanks also to the City Council and also to the city staff for your support. Still a lot of work to do, but definitely a big step forward. And also to the residents of the city in their support. It's nice to know that I'm not the only one who cares about this. Obviously, the council all cares too, but it's good to get all the support from the residents. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's picture time for us. And I don't know, should I present the plaque?
Make him come down.
Come on down, I'll for you.
Come on down.
Alec, do you want a picture with your kids, your wife and kids in there?
Sure.
Guess you're like,
Thank you. Thank you.
You guys ready?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah?
Just tell me where to stand.
Thank you.
Lieutenant?
Thank you.
I just want to say I'm going to accept this on behalf of the City of Troy, but it's really City Council, staff, City Attorney that are responsible for all the hard work that goes into something like this, and it's greatly appreciated. Alec, thank you so much for all those emails. It does show that it makes a difference, though, you know, and we always encourage the residents to send us emails and information, because this is what can happen when we can all work together to accomplish something. So thank you so much on behalf of the City of Troy.
thank you.
Thanks again to Scenic Michigan. Thank you for all the work you do for the state of Michigan and the City of Troy. Thank you. C3 is next on the agenda. That's an I-75 update. I see Mr. Hootery is coming forward. I'm
Just briefly.
just going to make an introduction.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I've got with me tonight Sue Data and Dennis Cooper of Michigan Department of Transportation, and they're going to give you a brief update on the I-75 Segment 2 mega project. With that, Sue can start, and then Dennis is going to pick it over.
Meetings.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having us.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. We're going to run through this, and I think you've seen this before, but a quick update, since we're getting close to construction, is we're here to talk about the I-75 project. It's a mega project, 20 years in planning and development. We originally had that one. There you go. We originally had 9 construction segments. We scaled it back into 3. Next slide. So now we have 3 segments, and one was completed in 2017, and this next segment is the one that's all impactful in the city of Troy. It's 8.5 miles, and 8 miles are in Troy. We're going to work on 20 bridges. We're going to reconstruct the freeway. We're going to add a lane. We're going to improve the drainage. We're going to add enforcement zones for the HOV lane, because one of the improvements is a capacity improvement that will include this carpool lane for the peak hours, 7 to 9, 4 to 6, something like that. And we're going to add aesthetic improvements throughout these 8.5 miles to match what we did in segment 1. It's a design build job, so we're designing it and building it almost concurrently. It cost $223 million, and it was let in the summer of last year. So the HOV lane, like I said, is going to add capacity. It's going to be HOV 7 to 9, 4 to 6, we think. And for the remaining about 20 hours, you drive on it just like any other lane. There'll be no special access. There'll be ramps. There'll be just signs and pavement markings. To support this, we're going to have 3 enforcement zones within Troy, and you can see on the green. The green shows the potential areas that you can sit and enforce these zones. We're going to support it with the carpool lot at Adams, as well as a new one at 12 Mile. We are going to reconfigure the interchanges at Big Beaver and 14 to diverging diamond interchanges. You've probably driven or seen the similar one at University and I-75. They help us modernize the freeway because this interchange was original construction. So now we're reducing the loop ramps, we're getting rid of the CD roads, all which help with safety and visibility. We also are going to be able to put the PEDs in the middle, kind of like University. And as you can see, this is the old freeway configuration. On top of it, the gray pulls everything together and provides more opportunity for green space and some aesthetic improvements. These next 2 slides just show an up close of the movements that you'll see when you drive through it, and the yellow indicates how you're going to travel through it as a PED. One more. We are doing this exact same thing at 14 Mile, and these next couple of slides show the same movements that we have at 14 Mile. One more, 2 more. So some of the benefits, wait. No. Can the video be shown? If you click on the next slide. Sorry about this. Next slide. If you click on it, you can see right there, yep. It'll show you just a real quick, brief swipe of what the existing interchange looks like. And if you pay attention, you'll see what the new interchange will look like at Big Beaver. So it's just a concept, but that's what it's potentially going to look like. And then we have, wait, don't touch, 14 Mile coming up. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. It shows the same thing. It shows the old layout and the new diverging diamond on top. Some of the, you can click to the next slide. Some of the benefits, it's safer, you're going to have less delay, you're going to have better visibility, and there's connectivity for pedestrians. And also, again, as the interchange goes in, you're going to have a lot more space for green and aesthetic improvements. So with that, Dennis is going to talk about the specifics of construction that's going to start this year.
Okay, just a quick update on construction. I'm sure you all experienced 2018 work with the shoulder work and the conditioning and the building the crossovers and traffic down to 1 and 2 lanes there. So that work is done. So we're most likely going to start, weather dependent, March 1st, working on the southbound 75. Doing a little more prep work before we flop traffic, which would happen probably mid to late March. So the southbound traffic, or the northbound traffic would be flopped onto the southbound side, 2 lanes each direction for the duration of work this year, which would be finished late November. And over the winter, Traffic would be back in its original pattern on its own bounds with all interchanges and ramps open. 2019 work. It's a total reconstruct, all the bridges, all the interchanges, the roadway. It's all concrete, new concrete. The ramps, all of the exit ramps will be maintained. There's 4 interchanges, so the northbound ramps to 14, Rochester, Big Beaver, and Corporate. 2 of those will be open at any one time. Everything will be reconstructed, so those ramps, 2 of those ramps will be under construction at any one time. 2 will be open. And like I said, traffic, the impact of traffic, you'll be 2 lanes each way on the southbound side. The exit ramps will be 2 open at any one time. The entrance ramps will be at 12 Mile and at Corporate. So 2019 work will be completed late November this year. Northbound will be totally reconstructed at that point. And over the winter, traffic will be back in its original bounds, 3 lanes each way, 3 on south, 3 on northbound. The interchange is all open. In 2020, we'll start the same thing, basically. Pretty much a mirror picture of what happened in 2019. Traffic will be flopped onto the new northbound, so that everybody will be driving on new pavement without any concern for any potholes and things that we're dealing with now. So it'll be on new pavement in March of 2020, and then the other half will be totally reconstructed. The interchanges, that half of the interchanges will be completed, and everything opened in the fall of 2020. So that 8.5 mile segment totally reconstructed in 2 years. So that's basically it, the construction work, 2019, 2020. We will be back in 2021 doing some final pavement markings, some tree replacements, final cleanup, that type of stuff. You want to go over aesthetics?
Yes. So I just may add to that, what Dennis described is exactly kind of what we did in segment 1. So the configuration remains the same. So the drivers are very used to that pattern of driving on one side of the road.
Correct.
So when we so as we're doing this, we're going to do community developed aesthetics. We developed a design guide with the communities along I-75, along with other stakeholders. And as you can see, these are some conceptual renderings of what we're doing. This here is first segment 1 at Adams and Square Lake. So this shows you a flavor of what we're going to replicate here in Troy, with the brick pattern, the diamond pattern that reaches out to the HOV, as well as the accent band and some other subtle but nice aesthetic improvements are going to happen to the bridges and whatnot. So we're also going to do tree planting and landscaping, as Dennis talked about, and we're going to do it after construction is completed. We want to finish the heavy construction, come back, plant the trees, make sure they flourish, make sure they're sustainable, and have a pattern and a design for that. So we will design for that later, as we did in segment 1. We finished construction, we came back, we planted the thousands of trees, and then we have CMGC, which is a special group that comes in and they maintains it for us, and we pay for that maintenance for an extended period of time because they are good at maintaining trees, whereas MDOT may not be the best at maintaining trees. So we're going to take that same approach as we did in segment 1 here in segment 2. So that was kind of the update, and everything's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. You'll see people out there, and I think you're going to see it should be good because segment 2 should mirror segment 1. It was fast, but it was impactful for the first couple of weeks, but then people got used to the configuration, but the result is pretty good. So if you drive between Coolidge and South Boulevard, it looks nice. So that's all we had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think there's probably a few questions from council. I know I've seen your presentation before, so I know there'll be some questions. So we'll start with Councilman Pennington.
You didn't even look over and you saw that I had a question. That's pretty good.
I can see you.
So the first segment was done earlier than anticipated. I'm just curious if when you did the bidding process, are you using the same crews where there's a possibility of it being done sooner than November again?
No, the first segment was what's called A+B contract. They bidded money and time, so it was highly accelerated, and if the contractor, there was a bonus if you finished early. That's the way that contract was set up to expedite that construction and get it done. Segment 2 is not that way. It's a very aggressive schedule, but there is no bonus tied to it.
That's disappointing.
It's 3 times larger.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, segment 1 was like 3 miles. This is close to 9 miles, and this has 4 interchanges. Segment 1 had one interchange.
Okay.
So
Willoughby.
it's a lot more work.
We did put in the contract and during the bidding process that they could shorten the duration and realize that in their low bid. So there is incentive to finish early. It's just there's just no bonus tied to it.
Okay.
So they actually they will finish schedule-wise 75 days early.
Okay. The other question I had was you talked about the impact on the traffic on north and southbound 75, but what about the impact on the surface roads, especially Big Beaver, where most of our congestion is going to occur?
There will be impact. Most of the time we're going to maintain 2 lanes each way on Big Beaver. We've got to demo the bridges, and there'll be times when it's down to 1 lane even closed. But the majority of the time will be 2 lanes each way.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Henderson was first.
Thank you for making us the second target, because that first target was done really nicely, so we appreciate that. The only question I have, and it dovetails with what Councilman Pennington brought, we have a lot of businesses that will be impacted along Big Beaver and 14 Mile naturally with the replacement of that segment. All that work's going to be done simultaneous with the I-75 replacement, so it'll be...
We won't be able to finish the interchange at 14 and Big Beaver until we do the southbound, so there'll be some temporary tie-ins when we're done with northbound. It'll still be functioning, but it won't finish and the interchange be complete until we do southbound.
So 2020 would be the target for all that.
Correct.
To be tied up. Okay.
Correct.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
That was kind of my question. So the DDI, they can't be completed half and half, right? They don't work that way. So how does that work in the meantime when half of it's done but the other half's not? How do traffic patterns work?
The actual work of on Big Beaver or 14 where these DDIs are going, that would be, this is a word, temporized.
Yeah, close to the word.
Close to the word, okay. Well, you know what I meant.
Right.
It'd be temporized when we do northbound, because we won't be able to finish. So some things are going to have to be temporary until we demo the bridge and finish it on the southbound side.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's in my mind if I could ask it now. So
Yeah, go for it.
You mentioned potholes, and at least I've been told and led to believe that some of the potholes that occurred on I-75 are a result of those cuts that were made in the fall. Have those potholes at least made you think about changing the plan to address that area that was severely impacted with potholes just recently within the last month?
I guess I'm not sure I agree that...
I'm just telling you that was...
I mean, the road's in terrible shape. It's falling apart. I don't think it's falling apart necessarily with what was repaired last winter. It's every other area.
But that hasn't impacted your decision on...
Well, I mean, the northbound side here in another couple weeks is going to be shut down.
It's going to be shut
and it'll be totally redone.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about potholes there anymore.
Okay.
Southbound, we have to maintain traffic on it all this year and one more winter. So what we're doing is conditioning that, doing some more of those patches that you see, and we'll seal it because we have to make it last while we have traffic on it and through one more winter. So the plan is to go out there in March 1st, we'll be on the road doing conditioning work on the southbound side, not on the northbound side because it makes no sense.
Right.
So on the southbound side, we'll do the conditioning to hopefully make it last through one more winter. That's the plan. And then you won't be dealing with potholes out there, and it'll be new by the time 2020 comes around.
2020. Let's hope you're right. Councilwoman Hoderick.
When segment 1 was done, and by the way, I lived it. I was traveling from here up to FCA, and it was really well done. But there was a period of time when traffic would spill over from I-75 north and southbound on our local roads. And this is really more a question related to our staff, but being prepared for that spillover. We had some experience with segment 1. I'm sure we had some learnings. And I'm hoping that we're planning, gearing up maybe to help communicate with the public, with our businesses, manage street lights and whatnot, especially during our rush hours.
Yes.
I assume the answer is yes, but I guess I want to make sure.
Yeah, that would be a big yes. We have talked with MDOT. We have talked with the Road Commission. So the Road Commission is very aware with the adaptive signal system and trying to do things when we've got closures, we've got traffic getting rerouted, we've got a wattle structure going down, all those types of things where traffic's going to be trying to find a different route. And one of the, I guess, a blessing for Troy is the ends of the project is where the real backups occur. So I mean, in between, so south of 13 and north of Coolidge. So that's where the real backups are going to occur, and people are going to try and find different routes. We're going to feel the brunt of it as they move north or head east-west. So we are, one of the things we're doing with our capital, you talked a lot about capital in the study session, is trying to take what we can of our major road projects off the books for the next 2 years. I mean, it's kind of a benefit because maybe it gives us some money for facilities, but it also tries to keep the roads clean so that we don't have things going. The Road Commission has some projects that they need to get done. Same type of thing. You've got potholes you need to address. You can't wait 3 years to do some of the work on, say, like a DeQuinder. But it's kind of isolated from the I-75 project. We're trying to stay off the Big Beaver corridor, stay off the south end of John R., stay off the south end of Rochester, the primary routes, Crooks Road, Square Lake, where we know traffic's going to try and get around the I-75 construction. So our idea is to try and keep our projects, keep county projects off of those roads so we can keep them open. Work with the county to try and prioritize signal movements and those kind of things. And there are some temporary signals that have not been used in this area before but are being proposed as part of the staging or the maintenance of traffic plan is maybe the need for temporary signals at crossovers and those types of things that we've not used in the past, that MDOT and their consultant has said, hey, looking at kind of the volumes of traffic that are going to get moved in and around I-75, off of mainline 75, we're going to have to do some creative things. And so that's all being looked at with the design build team, with the city, with the Road Commission.
Yeah, very good. Yes.
And maybe we can help communicate even with our residents and whatnot. If they don't need to be on the roads during those key timeframes, and everything we can do proactively. To help manage traffic flow, so people don't get caught,
MDOT does have a modernized 75 website, so any of the literature that we put out from the city, anything we put up on the website, we try and advertise that, because then they've got the Twitter feeds, they've got a lot of information that if you are interested in the project, you can sign up and you're going to get a lot of information that's going to get put out on the project. So when we put out Troy Today updates or we put things up on our website, we're trying to put the MDOT information up there as well so that we're consistent in the message that is being presented.
Councilman Henderson?
So maybe work with the chamber a little bit, see if they can get the word out, flex time and that kind of thing for the employees, all those kind of things. But the other point that I wanted to talk about is you had mentioned 13 Mile and Enterprise would be the only two entrance ramps, exit ramps. Can you explain what's going to happen this summer?
The entrance ramps would be at 12 Mile and Corporate.
12 and Corporate, okay.
The exits will all be maintained at different times, two at a time. They'll be under construction. Everything's going to be under construction. So they have 30 days to complete a ramp. So when they shut a ramp down, the next one would be open, and vice versa. So they'll alternate.
Okay, so it's not going to be just those two entrance ramps that are functional all summer long. It's going to alternate between...
The entrance ramps, yeah, 12 Mile and Corporate will be the two entrance ramps on the northbound 75. The exits will all be open at different times.
Okay.
Okay. That's good to know. Councilwoman Hoderick, did you have a follow-up?
I think I know the answer to this, but with segment 1, when trees were first removed and the sound buffers caused issues even for some of our residents that lived at the north end, most of that has already happened. There won't be any more of that happening, right? Where people are, you've done that clearing already, or is there still some more that will?
No, we haven't done any clearing yet. But we have addressed that issue where we take the trees down, we'll put up temporary barriers. And it will be much more closely coordinated with when the trees are removed and the temporary wall or permanent wall goes up. Segment 1 was a different animal because we had environmental regulations with bats and you can only clear at certain times, so we had to do it early because there's a window, you can't clear, I forgot what it was, till March 30th was it, and you couldn't clear after that. So we had to do it early, and that caused issues. But we don't have that on this segment.
So because of that, we try to actively buffer those locations that were by the residences and if we were going to clear. So that's the plan.
Okay, good. Thank you. That was a learning last time, so.
Yeah, it's just a different situation here. Plus, we have noise walls in Troy, whereas in the Bloomfield the first segment, there were no noise walls. So that even precipitated even more, I don't want to say hostility, but upset feelings. Right. And here, we're probably not going to have that because we do have noise walls. So.
While we're talking about aesthetics, I recognize that's going to be the last part of the project, but at the last presentation, I discussed that with a different audience, so I'm going to ask the question again. City of Troy does get an opportunity to participate in those aesthetics, especially right here at Big Beaver and I-75, and I also would like, if you could address, Auburn Hills has a real nice bridge. How does Troy get a similar bridge in our city?
So Troy did participate in the design guide that we had the aesthetic enhancements to. We did a bunch of charrettes and stakeholder engagement, worked with Bill and all the cities along the corridor and developed the corridor theme. So all the aesthetics are in that theme. We're going to continue that, and we pass our plans through. So the bridge abutments and all those things that you're seeing, those are going to be constructed. So if you're talking after construction, it would be mainly just be the landscaping and the tree replacements. And if we wanted to talk, which we did talk about briefly, something along the pedestrian pathway. I think we briefly talked about that. Those are things that, we can discuss after they're out of here with their big, heavy construction. Regarding the sign was a unique sign for them, and it was paid for by the city of Auburn Hills, and they did something there that is not typical what we would do, and I would caution you to do that just because it doesn't fit in with the theme of the corridor, which was a mid-century theme that people picked and gave us their preferences on, but we did talk about maybe a ground-mounted sign or something to show that you're coming into Troy at either end. So those with the pedestrian path, along with the tree replacements and the landscaping are, I think, can be handled after the heavy construction is over, but the actual aesthetics with the colors, the accent bands, the diamonds, all of that that is a part of the construction that will be completed in 2020.
Great, thank you.
Big golden circle.
Pardon me?
Big golden circle.
It's already been taken. Councilman Hamilton?
Thank you, Mayor. How long how long after this is completed do you think the road will last till another major repair or something like this would be needed? What's the expected shelf life, I guess I'm saying?
You know, this is new concrete pavement that's lasts 25, 30 years.
Okay, great.
Questions from council? Councilman Pennington?
Just curious why you caution us against doing a sign similar to that of Auburn Hills. I mean, the rail work on the bridge and then the sign itself is pretty impressive. I don't know about the rest of council, but I would like something, at least that nicer. I mean, we're Troy, for goodness sake.
The reason I say caution is because this was a corridor job, so we went through the federal environmental process, and that's how we came up with this design guide specifically for the communities along this corridor, right? So, like I said, we had workshops, public open houses, meetings, charrettes. We had, a landscape designer come in, look at things. I mean, these were all done over the course of several years that we did previously, but we spent millions of dollars developing this design guide with the input of all the communities and the residences, and mainly, I think we did them all here in Troy at the community center. So we spent the money to develop this theme, this corridor theme, and I can tell you that that's not really in the mid-century theme of the corridor, so that's why there's ground-mounted signs with brick accents. There's other things that kind of fit in with what you're going to see constructed. That is a great standalone piece, but I'm not sure how it fits in with the corridor. So I think you'll see that Big Beaver for sure is going to be a signature interchange. You're going to see the diamond pattern, you're going to see the accent bands, you're going to see more here than you would, let's say, at a Square Lake, just because it's the DDI. So that also brings you opportunity to do some of that landscaping and bring, as the interchange comes in, you have more opportunity for green space, and that is where possibly we can talk about, the entering signs and how we do that in the same pattern and in the same theme, but afterwards. So it's just a little different.
I don't know. After the fact just seems, you don't want something looking like it was after the fact.
Well, see, the problem is these projects are so long. It's been 20 years in the planning and development stages, and we do all these phases through, and we try to be as consistent as possible. And kind of in our understanding, we spent a lot of money on developing a design guide. Typically, we would not spend millions of dollars to do a design guide for a corridor to look at these aesthetics. And we want the aesthetics to not be dated. We want it to be timeless. We want it to fit in with the context of the communities that are here. And that would just be our feeling, but that's what was echoed back by the community stakeholders who came to these meetings and gave us their opinions. And then we created the concept. So at any of those meetings, I never really heard that. I heard more of some signature feature at Big Beaver or the ground-mounted, City of Troy signs. And I'm not saying it right, but I think, Bill, you remember them. They were like with brick, and then they would, be, I don't know. They were nice.
I think what I'm hearing is we can still make Big Beaver, and we can make our entrance at 14 Mile and Adams still a wow. It might be a different wow, but it's still we can still do a wow, right? And even if the city of Troy wants to put a little skin in the game, we can make it look like a wow. It might not be the exact, but it will still, people will drive by and go, wow.
I think because you get the DDIs at 14 and Big Beaver, you're going to have that extra wow that some of the other interchanges don't have, because you're just reconstructing them and replacing them in kind. So you have a lot more right-of-way to work with.
Great.
I just want to say I appreciate the timeless aspect of it, because while the Auburn Hills sign looks nice now, in 15 years it might not be. It might look a little dated. So timeless is good. I think Troy will be better served with timeless design, as long as we feel like we
got a wall
can
on it.
have some things to say, you know, but timelessness is important, so thank you.
And MDOT has talked to us about working with us.
Right.
It's kind of the same idea with the trees. I mean, we have road builders build roads, we have landscapers do trees, we have people that do signs and demarcations and those types of things. We have the experts do those. So we try and pull those types of things out of the projects so you can have the people that know what they're doing get involved in those aspects.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for putting 20 years into a project. I know it must be a little bit frustrating at times, but at least I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel now.
There is.
Yeah.
We'll see it soon.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. It's good to see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is C4, Economic Development Report. Glenn Lapin, our Economic Development Specialist, is here to bring us up to date.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'd like to bring you up to date on economic development activity in the city. We continue to see declining office vacancy rates, which is a good thing. In the fourth quarter of 2018, we're down to 13.6%. That compares to a 5-year average of 17.3%, and last year at the same time of about 15.1%. The rents on those properties have gone up to $19.74 a square foot, compared to the 5-year average of $18.93, and last year at the same time about $19.38. And the trend line, as you can see there, is downward. These are the lowest numbers we've seen in years, probably prior to the recession, which is upwards of, we had like 35% during the recession. Industrial vacancy rates remain low. They're at 2.7%, which is very low, which means there's not a lot of product out there for the demand that's there. That compares to a 5-year average of 3.2%, and last year at this time about 2.4%. The gross rent, about $7.61 per square foot, compared to the 5-year average of $6.48, and last year $7.08. Retail vacancy rates are extremely low at 1.8%. Part of the reason why you're seeing a lot of construction of new retail is to help fill the new demand that's out there. Compared to the 5-year average of 2.4%, last year 2.3% on retail. Rents are at about $21.04 a square foot, compared to the 5-year average of $18.91 per square foot. Last year it was a little bit higher at $23.04. We've seen some big successes in 2018. The biggest one in terms of business attraction is Aptiv. Aptiv is the spinoff from Delphi up on Square Lake Road. They will be moving their Mobility Research and Development Center into this facility. We don't expect them to be building new buildings. They're going to be filling up existing space, which has been vacated up in there. There's 3 buildings up in that area. Delphi remains in one of them. Aptiv it will be in the other 2, most likely. This will be creating 500 jobs and about a $20 million capital investment. This is only one of 3 Good Jobs for Michigan program incentives that were given out by the state of Michigan in 2018. And Troy was selected over 3 sites in other states, which is a good thing. Orbis is a plastic fabrication company that's headquartered in Wisconsin. They are in Madison Heights currently and moving to 999 Chicago Road, creating 45 jobs in a 26,000 square foot long lease over in that facility. You may recall this facility was actually leased by Amazon with their intention of moving warehouse facilities into there. Amazon changed their strategy a bit and decided not to take the space even after signing the lease. However, Orbis will be actually employing more people in this facility than Amazon would have. So this is actually a good thing that Orbis is going in there. Other developments that have been occurring, HAP, Health Alliance Plan, is moving into the old United Shore facility. They're about all moved in right now, 1,100 employees filling up that building once again. There's still room for additional office space as well. It's 180,000 square foot building space that HAP has, and there's a little bit of extra space beyond that as well. Superior Electric will be consolidating some of their Troy locations into the former Inco property. That's over on Maple Road, just by I-75. About 50 employees will be working there in that 52,000 square foot facility. So in these two properties, HAP and Superior Electric taking over large, long-time properties. Inco, for instance, is here for many, many years. When they moved out, that's a blow to the city, but we have some excellent tenants and owners that are moving back in to them and filling up those spaces. Wipro is an India-based IT consulting company. They've opened up an automation collaboration center over at 888 West Big Beaver as part of that building and that complex and their renovation. Pantero over on Indusco Court, they purchased a former Altair building, a very large building, 136,000 square feet. They're a commercial packaging company. They currently have about 20 employees there. They'll be growing to 50, but there's so much extra space in that building, they're actually going to make part of that into co-working space. So there'll be another number of other additional entrepreneurial companies that are moving in there, small, just starting out. So it's a great use of that extra space. Integra Partners is a durable medical equipment facility, a company based out of New York. They are leasing space over at 3221 West Big Beaver. 60 employees are there currently. SIAT, a longtime stone and tile retailer over on Coolidge Road and Industrial Row. They're building a 65,000 square foot showroom, and that is directly across the street on Industrial Row from them. That is nearing completion. We expect that to be opening probably early spring. WellMe is another MEDC, Michigan Economic Development Corporation incentive project. WellMe is a Chinese-owned plastic injection molding company. They will be creating 71 jobs over 5 years on Ring Drive, which is around the John R. 14 Mile Road area. $1.9 million capital investment. And Power Home, solar and roofing. Opening up a call center operations over at 500 Stevenson Highway. About 50 employees, about 18,000 square foot of office space. North Carolina-based major solar energy and roofing company that is going there. If anybody's driven along Big Beaver or the rest of the city, you're seeing all the retail and restaurant activity that's being built. This is just a sampling of just some of them. A lot of this is related to the soon-to-be completed 888 West Big Beaver project with the new retail about to open up at the corner of I-75 and Big Beaver. So many of these are from that facility. Stony River recently opened on Big Beaver, one of the other major restaurants here in the area. Retailers like DJI, which is the area's first drone retail store. It's opened up at the Oakland Mall area on 14 Mile Road. And it's also good to see with all the new stuff coming in and a lot of the national franchises first time here in Michigan. We're also seeing the long-time Troy restaurants like Shields. Joe Cool has been here for a number of years, are renovating. They're making an investment here in their properties, making an investment here in the community, so they're going to be here for a long time in the future as well, which is great to see both the new and the old kind of renovating as well. The Brownfield Redevelopment Authority has been very busy. The most recently approved project is the Harrison Poolside Troy project over on Stutz Drive. That is adjacent to the Michigan Design Center. This site was a former landfill. So it represents a $20 million private investment. Expect about 117 residential units to be built there. We expect site work to begin in spring with completion in the fall of 2020. Formally approved brownfield projects now under construction. Uptown Apartments, it used to be called Midtown Apartments, now it's called Uptown Apartments. It's behind MJR Theaters. It's $55 million residential development, 383 units that is under construction. The Regency at Troy project is the skilled nursing facility on the former McGregor industrial site. That is under construction as well. And Somerset Shops at the corner of Coolidge and Maple is undergoing renovation at this time. That's in the midst of construction. They just announced their first tenant is First Watch, opening up a second location. They're currently on the east side of Troy over on Rochester Road, and now opening here as well, right in the corner in the new Outlet building. And they'll be announcing new retailers and new restaurants as well shortly. I'm very proud to say that the Met Hotel is finally being demolished. This facility is a former Northfield Hilton, Northern Lakes Seafood restaurant, Northfield Charlie's back a long time ago. Once this is down, opens up a 17-acre prime location on Crooks Road at I-75. It is zoned office mixed use, so it opens itself up to a variety of potential uses. Corporate facility, mixed use facility. The owner, Sienna Health, they have not finalized any future use for this project yet, but we are anxiously awaiting and also working with them to try and get a final user into that site. It'll be a great, great location for a potential development. City of Troy continues to receive some accolades in terms of its economic development work and it's kind of its standing in the business community. U of M Dearborn has iLabs eCities. That's an annual program that they do where they utilize eCities program to encourage best practices in economic development. In 2018, Troy received 5-star honors for contributing to Michigan's entrepreneurial growth and economic development. And in 2019, you'll be hearing more about the redevelopment, Certified Redevelopment Ready Communities program, which I know came to you a few months ago. That's a state of Michigan program through the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. The program measures and then certifies communities that integrate transparency, predictability, and efficiency into their daily development practices. We'll be coming back to you in the future on that as well. We all know that Troy is a great location for global businesses. We want to make sure that others know that as well throughout the world. The state of Michigan and the Michigan Economic Development Corporation has published a new magazine, a publication called MISH Magazine. This is a new promotional publication that the state intends to take with them around the world as they go to various trade shows where they're actively recruiting businesses. And Troy has a nicely featured ad in this publication, which highlights the attributes of Troy as a global destination for businesses. We want to make sure that we keep that recognition and also attract more global businesses as well from around the world. This publication will be distributed at trade shows around the world, including the Hanover Messe Show, which is coming up in April. It'll be distributed in airports, and about 75,000 total copies will be distributed around the world. And we also want to make sure that locally and people that are looking for, businesses that are looking for information can access it easily and quickly. What we are doing with the economic development portion of the website, we're creating an overlay onto the website called the Troy Business and Investment Assistant. And what this does is it provides easy access to resources. It kind of cleans up the front page of the website and allows those that are looking at Troy, they need demographic information, they may need information on business tools that are available, maps, contact information, anything that they really need, they can look it up in this area quickly, easily, and it's kind of a nice clean overlay onto the website. And we just launched that kind of in a beta version, and we'll be sending out a press release very shortly to make sure that others are aware of it as well, and basically promoting it through the e-business newsletter and also through Troy Today magazine as well too. So I think it'll be a big help for businesses looking for additional information, make it easier to develop their businesses here and locate here in Troy. And with that, is there any questions? Be happy to answer it.
Thank you, Glenn. Any questions? Councilman Pennington?
Glenn, good news as always. Just curious, with a possible economic downturn, are you still getting as many calls as you were, like, say, 2-3 years ago? I mean, people are still, it's amazing all the businesses that come to Troy, but are you seeing a little bit of a downtick in that, or?
Not really a downtick per se. I think anything that sort of is holding things back might be the availability of space, particularly on the industrial side. It's so limited that there's just not a lot out there. In talking to the companies, they do say they're starting to see a little bit of a downward trend. They don't expect anything to be too big, and I think we're all kind of hoping that it doesn't happen in a large way. But so far, we're still seeing the growth of these companies, and their biggest challenge is finding the talent. And that's what we really need to work with them on. And that's the tough thing, on how to find the talent and make sure that we connect with the universities and that kind of thing.
Thank you. Every small business owner I talk to, and large business, same way. It's all about finding the people. And right around my corner, I'm just curious, do we have a tenant at 15 in Rochester there, the old Mickey Shore that building that went up?
That, I believe, is a coffee shop that's going in. You talk about the one that's right on the corner there?
Yep, the old Mickey Shore building that was there for...
Yeah, I'm not sure which coffee shop it is, but I believe it is supposed to be a coffee shop, is my understanding.
Okay, we don't know which one yet?
I do not know which one.
Thank you.
Right, sure.
Any questions for Glenn? Councilman Hamilton?
Just, I don't know as much of the history, but what took so long for the Met to get done? Other council members probably know this, but...
You have an hour?
The 30-second version.
Multiple owners. So there was one ownership following the closure of the original property. They kept it as a hotel for some time, didn't make too many improvements to it, eventually tried to sell it, sold it to somebody else. They purchased it without really a plan for it. They're now working on that plan, which is a good thing. So it's just when you get into ownership type issues and the difficulties related to that, that's what takes time. But I think the positive thing going forward is that it's an outstanding location. And I think it'll work out well in the end.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Abraham?
It's great to see the vacancy rates continuing to decline. That is a great trend. The question I had was on the retail side, where it's, again, a low rate of vacancy, but then the rent per square foot seems to have declined as well, when I might have expected it to have been stabilized or increased. Any explanation for why that might be?
My guess is so much came on the market at the same time with the new construction that you kind of hit the market all at once, and that's what's kind of causing the competition. Folks trying to, play a couple different locations against each other. That forces rents down a little bit. That's sort of how I see it, which I think it might be the explanation for it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Councilman Henderson?
Any projection on IHOP and Panda Express when they're going to be completed? Question pops up.
It's coming. It's coming.
I know they're working on it.
Yeah, they're working on it. I'm not sure the exact time frame on it, but it should be coming soon, hopefully. Yeah.
Sounds good. Good stuff. Thanks, Glenn.
Yeah, thank you.
There are no carryover items this evening or public hearings. I don't see that anyone has signed up for public comment on items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. Therefore, there's no need for City Council or City Administration response. We have no postponed items this evening, so we will move to regular business. I-1A, there are no mayoral appointments this evening. I-1B are City Council appointments, and I will defer to Mayor Pro Tem Baker for those.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move to confirm the appointment of Kristen Franklin to the unexpired term expiring September 30th, 2019 to the Parks and Recreation Board.
Support.
By Mayor Pro Tem Baker and supported by Councilwoman Abraham, that we appoint Kristen Franklin to the unexpired term for the Parks and Recreation Board. That term expires 9/30/2019. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Motion passes, and thank you to Kristen Franklin for volunteering for that position. I-2 are board and committee nominations. I have some mayoral nominations, but I'm going to defer tonight and wait till next. So at this point, I will defer to Mayor Pro Tem Baker for City Council nominations.
Thank you, Mayor. To the Election Commission, I'd like to nominate David C. Anderson and Harry Philo, both for terms expiring January 31st, 2020.
Support.
By Mayor Pro Tem Baker and supported by Councilwoman Hoderick, that we nominate David Anderson and Harry Philo to the Election Commission for the terms that expire 1/31/2020. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes. Motion passes. Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
And to the Traffic Committee, I'd like to appoint Cindy Nurak and Sunil Sivraman, nominate Cindy Nurak and Sunil Sivraman for the terms expiring January 31st, 2022.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Baker and supported by Councilwoman Abraham that we nominate Cindy Nurak and Sunil Silverman to the Traffic Committee for the terms that expire 1/31/2022. Discussion. The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Motion passes. That concludes the nominations this evening. Next on the agenda is I3. There is no request for closed session this evening. So we will move to the consent agenda. Anyone on council wish to pull a consent agenda item this evening? Councilman Henderson.
I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed.
Support.
By Councilman Henderson, supported by Councilman Hamilton, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as presented and printed in the agenda packet this evening. Any discussion on any of those items? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Motion passes. If you are here on a consent agenda item, they've all been approved this evening. Next are memorandums and future council agenda items. K1A is an announcement for a public hearing on February 25th, 2019, which is the Reprogram Community Development Block Grant CDBG PY 2018 funds. And K1B is an announcement for a public hearing on February 25th, 2019, conditional rezoning application for the proposed Cooper's Hawk Winery and Restaurant on the north side of Big Beaver between Troy and Frankton, Section 22 from R1E, which is one family residential, to BB, which is Big Beaver District. Next are public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. And I first will call on Avis Landmesser, Troy resident, who wishes to speak this evening.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
I live in Ottawa, in Troy. I just have a brief public comment about 3 cluster developments. What else? That will be discussed at tomorrow evening's Planning Commission meeting. My hope is that residents of the city, particularly those citizens that will be directly impacted by these developments, will attend this meeting and discuss their opinions, whether they are for or against the cluster home concept as it pertains to their particular situation. The proposals are West Troy Meadows, Section 16, north of Waddles, west of Livernois, 35 single homes on approximately 20 acres. The Preserves of Troy, Section 1, north of Square Lake, west of DeQuinder, 23 single homes on approximately 6 acres. The developer proposes designating 75 acres as a 6 Rivers Land Conservatory Nature Preserve. Chadberry Place, Section 13, south of Long Lake between John R. and DeQuinder, 16 single homes on approximately 5 acres. As you know, I don't like the cluster building concept that produces increasing numbers of cookie-cutter look-alike houses that are beginning to find their way into sections of our city, disrupting settled neighborhoods and, sadly, sometimes pitting neighbor against neighbor. Sad. But at your January 7, 2019 meeting, council members Henderson, Hoderick, and Abram gave excellent explanations of the cluster home concept that convinced me that under the present zoning ordinance guidelines, there are situations that may be appropriate for its usage. You see, you're getting through to me. Thank you. But I continue to believe that there are some cluster developments that, because of their unique circumstances and being mindful of current zoning ordinance requirements and other pertinent legal ramifications, should not ever be granted approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'll call on Aaron Dailuski, Troy resident, who wishes to speak this evening. Good evening, Aaron.
Hello. Hello. My name is Aaron Dailuski. I'm a Troy resident. I'm a product of the Troy public school system. In school, I was an isolated individual from second grade on. They would isolate me and give me special treatment with little stars. Nobody else in the classes had to do those sorts of things. I kind of felt like an outsider among my own peers. Anyways, one of the things I want to mention real quick is about Kashinik. He pointed out himself that he did it himself. The crimes he committed that he did himself. I don't agree with that. I think the things that happen to people are how they're raised. You know, like how individuals are put through certain systems, almost like they're set up for failure. You were talking about a nice bridge, like Auburn Hills. I think that's a good idea. I think having people ride through Troy in their cars, or bubbles, as I call them, that they would like to see something nice in Troy, or residents of Troy would like to have something nice to have so that people can recognize the city as having something special. That bridge in Auburn Hills is nice, but I do consider it to be kind of lame. I would like to see a pedestrian bridge over I-75, a grand, big bridge, suspension-style bridge, to show that this city is focused on people-friendly improvements. You could view some of my work. It's at troytrails.community. That's online. You could look at it on your phone. It's the first picture that shows up. It's a nice bridge that goes over the expressway. And Lepin here, he was talking about talent. You got Kurt Bovensip. He pointed out that I have talent. All right, so I called him a few times or emailed him, however it may be, and I told him that, all right, pointed out some of the things I'd like to do. If he'd like to check out my work, he could do that. And I'd like to make the city people-friendly, and so that people can ride their bikes safely, and so they're not set up for failure.
Thank you, Aaron. That concludes those that have signed up for public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. It's an opportunity for council to comment. Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start with Mrs. Landmesser. I have to say that the three of you who managed to convince her to see some good in cluster developments is really impressive. She's been here at every meeting almost for months and months, and so that's very impressive. So kudos to the three of you that she mentioned. But I appreciate, Ms. Landmesser, your willingness to say what you said and to see things from a different perspective and still stand by your principles and your own concerns. I think that you make very good points, and I agree with you that not everything should just, it doesn't automatically have to be approved. We should always look at the competing interests and balance everything out. But good points again, and thank you. I appreciate you coming again. Aaron, I also want to thank you for speaking tonight. I know you're a big advocate for bike riders in the city of Troy. I think I saw you come in at the last meeting, but you didn't stay, and I was thinking, Aaron's amazing, he's riding his bike. It was a snowstorm at the last meeting, and I thought he does it Everywhere he goes. So I appreciate your comments, and your work is good on your website that you mentioned, and I appreciate all the energy you put into that, and thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Henderson?
Also for Aaron. Aaron, the MDOT presentation today showed some restoration of Big Beaver, and there's going to be a lot of pedestrian interest going in along Big Beaver. So hopefully that's probably one of the more complicated features we have in Troy to make pedestrian friendly. So I'll look for that in the next 2 years.
Councilwoman Hoderick?
Mrs. Landmaster, thank you for being here again and for the dialogue. I just think it's great that we're having the constructive dialogue we are. And I want to point out that the by right developments that come before Planning Commission do not necessarily come to us depending on if there's rezoning and whatnot. Cluster approvals can pass planning, but they always come to City Council. And the reason for that is exactly what you're talking about. They're not always going to make sense, right? It's an option that a developer can bring to bear, and we are that backstop to make sure that it makes sense when it is proposed. So, I hope that gives some perspective on, we do look at each case by case, and not all of the proposals are bad, and I appreciate that you've taken the time to look into it and understand that sometimes they make perfect sense both for the neighbors abutting and for the city overall. And that changes the tone of the conversation, which is how this process should work. We should be able to dialogue and learn from one another. It's not to say that we're not hearing what residents are saying. That is part of our job too. But thank you for hearing in return what we've been trying to do for the city and why that option even exists in this city. Appreciate it, and look forward to your continued involvement and continued dialogue. Appreciate it very much.
Any other comments? It's unfortunate that Aaron left before I could I saw Aaron riding his bike to the meeting tonight, and he was struggling on Livernois on the sidewalk. And I think it's just a darn shame that people don't shovel their walks as they should. And I know we do the best we can to enforce that. And generally, we don't enforce unless we get a complaint. But it just kind of breaks your heart to see him riding his bike, and part of the sidewalk was shoveled and part of it wasn't shoveled. And I think we could, as residents, do a better job of shoveling our sidewalks. In Avis, sometimes, I agree with all what the council members said about the cluster at the last meeting. Sometimes we don't say the same thing because it would be a repetitive to what they said, but many times we'll agree with what they said, but sometimes we get the last opportunity, not the first opportunity. So I support what you said. Those comments made by those council members was good and spot on, and thank you for paying attention. I know. That concludes those that have signed up for public comment on items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. So we will move to council referrals. There are no council referrals this evening, which takes us to council comments. Any council comments this evening? Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually thought of something after MDOT had left, but we've talked about trails and pathways and potentially using the space along I-75. And I'm just wondering from city management, is there any, obviously there'd be coordination with them, or is that something that would take place completely after they're done with all the construction?
We have coordinated.
Okay. And everything's still okay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Everything is good.
Everything's good? All right, good. No, it came to my mind after they left, but thank you.
Councilwoman Hoderick.
Just a shout out to our DPW, there's been a ton of proactive middle-of-the-night effort out there to help us stay safe and to keep our roads as safe as possible under some pretty extreme conditions. Last night I turned on the 11 o'clock news, WDIV, to see the current weather forecast and what they were saying, and of course they started the news with it, and they were showing trucks that were out on the roads already, and it was a City of Troy DPW truck on Big Beaver that went. That's our trucks, those are our guys and gals. So, and you know, we had feedback from residents about the storm tracker when it is deep enough that we're plowing in the neighborhoods, that they really appreciate the opportunity to track. And so many thanks for that, and just wanted to take a chance to appreciate everyone, and hope they're getting good sleep and getting ready for the next. You know, and for residents that are watching, you know, the police department, the Troy School District, or the school districts, our DPW, they're working and collaborating and talking as storms are forecasted and working together to be as smart about all this as possible. And sometimes Mother Nature doesn't deliver exactly what we're thinking or in the right timing, and that we can see behind the scenes that they're working to calibrate accordingly. And I think our residents should sleep well at night knowing that at least there's a great proactive attempt to get out there, and we really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilman Henderson.
So this week on the Nextdoor app, there was a comment about the Stone Schoolhouse, the old Stone School, and it is there are for sale signs on the property. And I thought we'd take this time just to kind of address that, so people know that it's on the radar. I'm not sure who wants.
We have Larissa Fiddle in here who can respond where we're at.
Don't mean to hit you with a curveball, but...
Oh, that's okay. Right. Curveballs are what I do. Right. So,
thanks for hanging around tonight.
Oh, my pleasure.
As long as this was coming.
That's okay. I've been fielding a lot of calls, so good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Normally, when we sell off excess or surplus property, it is provoked or the process is started by an inquiry from someone who's interested in purchasing a property. We received a request from an individual that wanted to buy the property to preserve it and use it for what we thought were honorable, or the intention was honorable. In fairness and all transparency, we offered the property for sale to the general public. It is what's called a buildable parcel. It's large enough. But we were very careful to stipulate that this is a historic district, that it has a lot of anything you want to do, you can't tear it down. You have to work with the Historic Commission. So we're very careful about conveying this to anyone that's interested in purchasing the property. We did have the property appraised. We followed the guidelines as set forth in the surplus property sale guidelines as set forth by City Council. We presented it to the Parks and Recreation Committee, who found no merit in its use as that property to be used as a park, and so we put it out for public bid. Of course, the final decision is yours when we present any bids, if any, that are received.
Sounds good.
Questions?
Questions? Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
This was answered in a written response for questions we asked earlier, but so you said that because it's a historic property and building, there are restrictions to what they can do. Does that mean they can move the building? Does that mean what?
They would work with the Historic Commission and the Planning Department as to what would be allowed and what wouldn't be allowed. I wouldn't be prepared to tell them what they can and can't do, but I mean, for instance, if it's a Georgian building, you're not going to, offer renovations or make renovations or Edwardian. So you work within the parameters of whatever the Historic Commission allows.
I think that the concern perhaps for some residents is that it gets sold and torn down and a gas station gets put there, for example.
We can't tear it down.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It can't be torn down, but could it be moved and that land used for another purpose? I don't know if that's a city.
Mayor, well, we can put restrictions on the sale of the property so it won't happen.
Okay.
We can ensure that the building will stay there.
And I don't know if that's the best use of what everyone wants, but I'm just saying, the questions get asked as to...
Also, it's residential property. It's not going to be...
It's residential, okay.
It's not going to be rezoned for commercial purposes.
Unless council decides.
Yes. Current policy documents dictate that it stay residential.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Hodori?
I think in the spirit of the questions that are coming at us is, boy, this is a historical gem, and what's City Council doing, and are you protecting it? The short answer is the historical building will be protected. We're not looking to sell this and decimate it and ruin a piece of our history. And in fact, this could be a positive toward protecting it. Correct?
Correct. And maybe a little background, we acquired this property as a donation about 10, 12 years ago. It was always a residence. So the building was built in 1857. For many years, it operated as a schoolhouse, and then it transformed into an individual residence. And it fell into disrepair and so on. If any of you remember, the back of the property had 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. There was a garage and an apartment attached to that. And they were in pretty poor condition. We tore those down. They were not part of the historic structure. And so when the family of that owner came to us and said, would you consider taking this over, they donated the property to us. And so we've had it for about 10 years. It's not as if we've had it for centuries or decades. Well, it is a decade, I guess, 10 years. But we looked at it and we said, this property, to renovate it, we would have to infuse a lot of money into it. And if there's someone out there that's willing to take on that project and restore it to its glory, to give it the respect that it deserves, then let's pursue that avenue. And that's what we're doing.
Councilman Henderson.
So the agreement that was written up here to make some changes, and the change being Troy may hold and use the subject property for any lawful purpose. Lawful purpose naturally would be to sell the property. Right. But we would, to follow up with Councilman Baker's thought process, we would put in the deed, transferring the deed, that they just can't, or they would at least know for a fact that they couldn't just destroy that building and take away its historic value.
Right. And if you look at the notice that's in the paper and in the bid document, so I was very specific in noting that it is part of the Michigan Historic District. You have to follow Chapter 13 of our city codes and in our ordinances. It does follow the guidelines of the Michigan Public Act 169. So anyone, and I've spoken with a lot of people, and I've said you have to be mindful of those conditions and those restrictions on that property. You're buying it as is, where is, with all faults, but as is, where is means that there are certain guidelines and there are certain directions that you will have to follow.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any council comments? Councilman Pennington?
Yes, a couple comments. I want to start out on a low note talking about the Brian Kishnick dead horse that we can't seem to, or imprisoned horse, I should say, that we can't get over, but I'll end up on a high note. So 2 weeks ago, Councilman Abraham's boyfriend, John Kluge, came up and accused me actually of knowing about, or possibly knowing about a driveway, that pavement deal that was brought up by the FBI in the prosecutor's report. That was the first time I'd heard about the driveway being paid for by Delisio. But it was brought up that one council member had inside information, and Mr. Klulich was saying that he was intimidated that I was the one that knew about it. So just curious, when are we going to have that information from the FBI as to who this council member was? I know that you probably know who it is, but are we going to get some kind of closure on this?
I don't know who it is. So, and the FBI has been very guarded in what they have provided to us. So, again, it's the FBI who did the investigation. It's the FBI who uncovered the driveway that was put in by Delisio.
So how did they find out about that a council member knew about it beforehand?
I don't know, the FBI had their own investigation, so I'm not aware of that.
Okay, so unless this council member comes forward, we're not going to get any closure on this issue, and this little faction of the public can just come and beat us over the head with this constantly?
Whatever we get from the FBI, it's whatever the FBI chooses to give to us. So we don't really have any communication, at least right now. We don't have anything. We haven't had anything since the sentencing.
Okay, well, I'd like that agent's information. That way maybe I could, talk to him. And along those same lines is, when are we getting final report on the forensic audit?
That should be in the near future. We're hoping they're expediting it as much as they can, and we hope to get that to the council very quickly.
Good. That'll provide us some closure anyway. But on a high note, I attended the Troy High School's 27th annual orchestra concert, and two things I want to bring up about this concert is, if you've never been, these students are phenomenal. You would not know that they're high school students by the way they play. The director, Alan McNair, came back to guide these students as when the previous director had another assignment he took on, and Alan came back for this year. And like, if you have the opportunity, you need to go see him. But our Planning Commission appointee, Heymonth, I believe his name, and I apologize if I butchered your name, but he is in the symphony orchestra. There's 4 orchestras, and he's in the he's in the Philharmonic, which is the top orchestra. But that's not what I want to talk about Heymonth is after the performance, they had an afterglow, and a young lady, an elderly lady, passed out, and I happened to be nearby, and there was another nurse that was nearby, and we stayed with this woman. It was somebody's grandma. And we didn't know if she had a stroke or had just passed out for heat exhaustion or whatever it was, but Heymonth stayed with me and this nurse until the paramedics came. Whatever we needed, he got for us. He got us, the nurse wanted to get her a drink of water. She asked her a bunch of questions, wanted to get a drink of water. We got her a drink of water, we had her sit up, and then the nurse wanted a chair, and so we got her in a chair, and then she passed out again. And so we got her back to the ground, and the nurse wanted a cold compress, and Heymonth was there while all his friends were walking back and forth and milling around and grouping with their friends. He stayed with us until the paramedics got there. So you talk about a hero and a kid that does great for the city of Troy, and we got a great one in the Planning Commission. I just want to point him out.
Very good. I've met him, and he is an outstanding, he's something that Troy can be proud of, that's for sure. Yep. For sure. Any council comments? I have one comment. Regarding the lights, the holiday lights on Big Beaver, I've had a few of the businesses ask me why the lights aren't on anymore. And Councilman Henderson got a call from, I think, at least one business owner regarding the lights also. So I had a discussion with City Manager Miller today, and I think we've agreed that we should have a permanent start date and a permanent when they go off date. So everybody knows when they're going to go on and when they're going to go off. And I think at this point, City Manager Miller is going to institute those hours so that we can pass those along to the businesses and the residents so they know. Unfortunately for our area, this year Christmas looked like Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving looked like Christmas, and now we have a winter wonderland and the lights aren't on, and they do seem to look better when there's snow and it's so. Mr. Miller, if I could just call upon you, I think you've made a decision on a permanent date for turning them on and turning them off, and maybe we could pass that along.
Yeah, we were looking at extending the hours from about November 15th to the end of February.
I think that's
And we'll
That's good.
we'll have an official policy that's what we're going to follow.
I know this year we had some issues regarding the rain, which caused some of the lights to go out because of the ground fault issues, and that in order to get them back on, you had to climb up the pole to get, hopefully we can make that a little more convenient for those people that have to do that, especially in these kind of temperatures. So.
Mayor, I just wanted to make sure, just to clarify, that's for the future years, though, not for this year. So I just wanted to make sure that the persons who were listening didn't expect for the lights to be turned back on this February.
Correct. I think we've passed the, we couldn't do it if we wanted to at this point, I believe. So I think that's good news for the businesses. So, no other comments from council? Any comments on the reports that were published in the agenda packet? I don't see that anyone has signed up for comments on items on or not on the agenda from members of the public outside of Troy. There is no closed session this evening, so thank you for coming this evening. We are adjourned.